Basic Education Minister Angie Motshekga says her department is working tirelessly to improve reading and maths for learners in early grades. The department is currently focused on its new early childhood development system and aims to have a detailed cost plan for the project by March 2020. President Cyril Ramaphosa, during his State of the Nation address earlier this year, announced that early childhood development will be moved to the basic education portfolio. A move, Motshekga says, will improve the quality of education in the country. I spoke to the minister during the SADTU National Congress about these plans and more. Minister, thank you very much for your time. Well, among the department's successes, you told the SADTU Congress today, is how you have improved access to education for your 7 to 15-year-olds almost 100%. But by our own admission, you can't say the same about the quality of the education that you've given those children.
Sure. You see, by the time we go to grade 10, 11, 12, we start beginning to observe quite high dropout rates. And one of our findings in research and also household survey says it's then when they go to higher grades, they can't cope with the curriculum, so which means they're bringing deficits with them from lower grades. So they find it, and that's why we don't even have 100 or 100% pass. We struggle when we get to the FET phase. So it means there are deficits that they've been carrying through the system, and hence others drop out with bigger numbers. But the other, so that even children with special needs, there's not enough remedial education. They begin to be teenagers, so you can see the effects of teenage and poor or weaker parenting. So you see all the challenges, social and academic problems that they were dragging with them that begins to. So that's why I'm saying there's lots of things that we have to do in that phase where we still have them. And worse still is that for years we've been having what we call academic curriculum. And it's not every child who really wants to go into history and maths at higher grades. They begin to discover themselves, their talents are showing up. And as a system or as a country, we've not been able to give them other pathways which enable them to get other forms of education other than academic. And that's what we're trying to address in the lower grades.
Mm-hmm. Now, you told the SADTU Congress that you're not planning any new curriculum. There's no new curriculum on the cards. But as the department, you have identified 11 priorities that you're going to focus on. Now, we won't go through each and every one of them in the little time that we have, but I want us to go through a few, starting with early childhood development, which the President spoke about in his State of the Nation address. How much progress have been made? And I'm saying this because the President did say that teachers would need to be trained. He did say that money would have, in fact, only yesterday at the SADTU Congress, he did also say that those teachers are underpaid, so they will have to be put on par with their counterparts elsewhere in the system. How are your preparations going?
You know, there are, global preparations that we have to deal with, because all along the coordination of ECD was in social development. So for the first time, we're working out through the legal part, the policy, and just the whole ecosystem that we need to do in terms of policy and programs for ECD. So we've formed about 6 work streams. They've been working since elections, and by December we will get the results. But because it's not a new program per se, but it's to consolidate, have an ecosystem, and strengthen what has been happening. So working and relying to a very large extent in NGOs, because they've been very active in that sector. So we're working with them, collaborating with them to assist us. We're working with social development. So we're not going to be able to win the battle overnight, but what is encouraging for me is that at least we'll have a national framework in which we are going to then start working through where health comes in, where local government, because it's been in all the departments. Local government, they run crashes, social development is doing something, health is doing something, we've been doing something on curriculum. So we'll have a very integrated program, and that's what we're sorting out in the first 6 months. And as we sort it out and phase it in gradually, we'll start where we are strong. We are strong at your 2 grade Rs, your grade R1 and 2. We've been training people with the universities, so we'll strengthen this. So instead of moving from bottom down, because our strengths are up, so we're going to move from the up part and just reach the bottom. So there is a plan that we've developed, and it will be final by December. I could give you, so that I don't have any time, but it's a whole team that is working with it, and it's a team that we have UNICEF helping us, we have the NGOs helping us, we working with different departments as a team just to make sure that we have an integrated program. And for me, the biggest victory was just to have an integrated program so that we can even map up the land in the country, because currently it's children from privileged or working mothers who go to crash very early. But children whose mothers are not working, whose parents are not working, they're staying with grandma until they go. And those are the ones that we're targeting to say, let's bring them together and start working from there.
Now, in integrating these people from other areas of our lives, how are you ensuring that you do not inherit some of the problems that your social development had, for example, the problems that your health had? If you go back, for instance, to your life ECD minis, if you look at how NGOs haven't really been fully embraced and supported by the government department, the respective government departments that they've had to deal with, how do you make sure that that doesn't creep into your part of the work, which, as a new program, I mean, will obviously have teething problems of its own?
I just think it's as an education department, and that's why worldwide ECD is mainly in education. We are used to big systems. We have the back and the infrastructure to carry big systems. We run 26,000 schools with more than 1,200 million, so there is an infrastructure to carry any program. And that's the advantage. And I think that's what most world countries have seen about the education system. We're used to, we are used to big systems. So your ECD means compared to health, they're not used to, really, I don't know how many health centers are there, how many. So yeah, we're a sector with an infrastructure to carry, with systems that can carry programs. So ECD just going to be one of the programs. What for me is exciting about the current developments is that as a country, we really were running a very important program like ECD, Art of Social Development, which in the main, social development runs through NGOs, civil society. So it's a very fragmented system as compared to the education infrastructure system. We have a footprint everywhere. What I had said to officials, a mistake we should not do is to try and replace that which is working. We're going to have a hybrid system where you have ECD centers that are running well. We're going to get them all registered, like we register schools, have an inspection on an ongoing basis through the infrastructure that we have, and keep your, so we'll have hybrid where you have private ECD centers, so we won't try to inherit those. If parents can pay, you also don't want to fix what is there. Where we are subsidizing, that's where we're going to assist them to say, if you want us to register you, like we do with private schools, these are the minimum requirements, so that's up to you. If we are to run them as education, obviously we won't run them. And this is sometimes a mistake that people are doing, to say or are thinking that we will be bottle feeding and nappy changing in schools. We won't do it.
I don't think. I think it's because of what we've been through that people would raise concerns. Let's take the feeding scheme, for example. I mean, as you do have the capacity, you do have this like wide networks, but I mean there were problems. Remember when the program started, all sorts of things crept in, because remember the thugs and criminals are also watching. They're always looking for gaps within the system.
No, at least if you said how do we avoid corruption, where the system will be abused, something else. But you gave me a problem of ECD where it was a system where we're removing patients as government to private institutions. I'm saying we're not going to be removing anybody from there. We're going to strengthen and consolidate where things are. The main thing, as you correctly say, how do we make sure that people who are supposed to get help do get help? Because we're not going, as I said, we're not going to build new infrastructure. We won't even afford it. I mean, we have our huge infrastructure backlog. What we are going to do in ECD, it's where children are currently, make sure that we support them. Where we have no access, I mean, in my constituency in Midrand, there are no centers. You find 3-year-olds loitering during the day. It's to work with community, with civil society to establish centers. And that's where we are going to need professional people. So we're not going to, like ECD, so maybe it's the example of, we're not going to remove anybody and take them elsewhere. That's why I'm talking about. We're not going to be battlefielding in schools. We're going to strengthen, we're going to consolidate. The main thing for me is to just have, it must be agile so that your municipality where they run crashes to work with them, but say these are the programs that are supposed to do, this is what is supposed to happen, these are the qualifications that are supposed to happen. So they will still keep their crashes, but we will ensure that their norms and standards, they're monitored and they're supported. That's what we're going to be doing as SDB. We're not going to take crashes from municipalities. That's going to run them. My main interest is those that have no access, to say how do we improve their access to make sure that they do get access in suitable centers in terms of age and locality.
Mm-hmm. Now, the training, because
it's ongoing, and that's why I say we rely on infrastructure that is there. Higher education has started using, for instance, FET colleges to create access. We'll want them to be better trained than they are. Most countries where they have very successful ECD programs, your Finland, your Seychelles, they train them more than even they train teachers. In Finland, to be an ECD practitioner, you need 5 years. To be a teacher, you need 4 years. So we're looking at programs to strengthen the training of ECD practitioners. But currently, we'll work with those that are there and recruit more into the system. It's going to be a gradual process because it's one process that we're not going to be taking overnight. For me, the first things that we have to do next year is the registration, it's the norms and standards, it's a common curriculum, qualifications, and the monitoring to make sure that you don't run a crash in your kitchen and all sorts of things. And then get your municipalities, because it's their responsibility to provide facilities, and see how we work with them to make sure that they are centers suitable for learners. And that's what we're going to be doing the first day, just mopping up as we build our capacity to run a fully fledged and proper ECD program.
The President told SATU that they will have to be compensated adequately. Has that been budgeted for? Do you have the money?
No, it should happen, because if we want them more trained than teachers, it means we have to, and if we want to attract talent and not people who come to ECD because they have nothing to do, but it's people who really want to work in the area of a child development, because it's at that level that we have to do lots of remediation, your speech therapy, so the government has to be ready to really put in adequate resources. That's where you need your speech therapies, all your therapy, and that's why it's very important for us to invest in that center, to avoid some of the challenges that we meet at school, where kids go with lots of deficits which have not been identified properly in the earlier phases and have not been remediated, and then you find that they catch up with them when they reach your age 15. So it really has to be your SIFT, and that's where government, if it really wants to improve the system of education, has to invest a lot so that you can do lots of remediation before time.
Now, the President in his State of the Nation address said that there's going to be a lot of focus, not only with regard to early childhood development, but throughout the system on previously disadvantaged areas, the townships, farms, rural areas, and so on. And as you know, which then brings me to the other priority you spoke about, which is infrastructure. We know the backlogs over there. What are you doing there?
As I mentioned, I had to ask Treasury to allow me deviation to employ your highly skilled people in infrastructure, which they have finally done. I've signed on, so we have a branch now with infrastructure experts, because according to the schedule, infrastructure is a provincial competency. Monies go there, and we have very little to do. So at such present, there is no way we can take responsibility for a function that we have no finances, no authority, and no power over. So we hope that with this branch that they've allowed us to do, we'll be able to work with provinces on different programs that challenge that section. For instance, one of them is to rationalize schools. I mean, Eastern Cape has, I think it's one of the third smallest province. It has the highest number of schools. So Gauteng with 2,000 schools, with the second highest number of learners, it has 2,000 schools. Eastern Cape with the lowest number, it has 6,000 schools. So we have small pieces of schools. And you can't say because of rurality, because KZN is just as rural. So there are lots of things cleaning up that we need to do to really map up schools much more better, to coordinate better, but also the expenditure. That provinces, what they're spending in infrastructure makes it difficult for government to cope. Where their focus is just to reprioritize and clean up that area. So I do hope that for the first time, as national, we'll have the capacity with high-skilled experts to support provinces to deal better with infrastructure.
Well, we'll have more on basic education. That's when we return in a moment.